Hi, my name is Donovan Evans. Some people call me Photodono, or just Dono. I'm an award-winning photo artist, and I've got over 25 years of experience with making things with my camera. Lately, I've been obsessed with the Milky Way, around since 2016. Also, print sales and gratuities help me pay the bills and put food on the table. Remember, I have a family to feed, and I'd rather have them eat something other than me. Please drop by my tip jar at paypal.com/paypalme/photodono. Think of it as buying me a cup of coffee or beer. Beer. For additional updates on classes, please feel free to stop by and check out my website. Here you'll find out a little bit more about my work as well. Also, another way to help out is if you can stop by my sachi.com/photodono page. Here you can browse some of the current prints and artworks I've been working on. You'll find originals or one-of-a-kind artworks here. There's also another option for canvas and fine art prints. You can find out when I'll post new work when you click the link to follow me at Sachi. The added benefit is to help increase my visibility to other art collectors. Every little bit helps, and anything you could do would be most appreciated. List of classes I'm teaching at Johnson Photo Imaging. Stop by jpiphoto.com and click on About Classes, and you'll find out more about what's going on there. The store is located on the Gulf Coast of Florida. I also post about the classes on Facebook and Instagram at JPI in Focus. And if you're based in Florida, stop by Johnson Photo Imaging and we'll be glad to help you with your photographic needs. On here. Thank you. All right. Well, thank you everybody for joining us. I hope you are going to enjoy it. See a lot of familiar faces. So as you know, most of you seem to know who I am. I'm going to probably cut through the preamble, as it were, and I'll just tack that onto the video, which I'll do on the YouTube thing. So coming up, I think right now it's coming up around the corner right now, so it's depending on the weather. I'm doing a photo walk over at Bok Tower Gardens. It's going to be March 3rd. I'm off that day, so I'm going up for an afternoon, late afternoon walk, because what's going to happen is that in the evening, they're doing Bok After Dark. It's a special event that they do a couple of times throughout the year where they open up the gardens to after hours. So it's an opportunity for me to walk around the gardens at night and to photograph the gardens at night. They don't do it too often. And this is before the time change, so this is a good opportunity to do some low light photography as well, too. So it's a lot of fun for me to go out there, not only to do some photography during the day, but also to get some photography at night. Now, I don't charge to go out there, but of course the guards do charge a fee. So again, you got to remember, they charge a fee. I don't charge a fee. $17 to go out there during the normal daytime. If you want to go out there for their evening thing, depending upon when you buy the ticket, it's $35 to $50. So that does include being able to go out there during the day for that one day only. But you got to go out there and get your tickets. Tickets do sell fast if you're going to do it. There's a performance there. I forget I think it's Allison Brown is her name. I've never heard of her, but I don't really pay attention to the musician that's playing, because I try to take advantage of being able to do shots like this. Where I could try to do star trails or take pictures of the tower or anything around there. The azaleas are in bloom right now. So if you're interested in that type of stuff as well, during the day is a good opportunity to do that. So again, it should be a lot of fun. again, if you're interested in doing it, you want to join me, I'll be there at 3 o'clock at the visitor center, and then at 6 o'clock I'll be at the tower. So if you guys are interested in doing that, it's gonna be this Friday. If you want to go and join me, you're more than welcome to that. For those of you who knew about it or didn't know about it, I was doing a photo walk downtown, and apparently there's a couple of things that was going on that I didn't know about. Mainly the Pirates, the Pittsburgh Pirates apparently came into town, which I wasn't too worried about, to be honest with you. More the merrier as far as I'm concerned. But unfortunately, I came in contact with somebody who had COVID, which meant that I had to get tested. And while I was waiting for the test, I wasn't sure if I was going to test positive, negative, or whatever. But and since it since it was through the store and everything else, I really just it was just better for all parties and interests to cancel the event and then put and reschedule it. So this is the rescheduling of it. I'm going to be doing it again on March 12th here. So if you're interested, again, this is a free thing. If you guys are interested in doing this, I'm going to be there across from the Lost Kangaroo pub, not in the pub, across from it. I've been calling this the photo pub crawl, but it's really not a pub crawl as much as it is an opportunity to get together and walk around. Will I go into a pub? Yes. Will I buy a drink? Probably. I'm not. I promise I'm not getting smacked around down there. I am gonna go. I'm planning to walk down to first and then walk my way back up to 64. That's my plan, to be able to walk around and take some pictures. I'm only taking one camera. I'm not bringing a tripod, things like that. And that's all I'm planning on doing, to walk around and just take some pictures as best as I can and try to have some fun doing it as well as talk and meet and do some interesting stuff. So if you guys are interested in doing that, that's what I'll be doing again on March 12th. If anybody's interested in doing some more details about editing panoramics, creating panoramics for large printing. So for those of you who are trying to do 48-inch large prints with your cameras, because you can do that, I'm going to be doing a course here at Johnson Photo Imaging, if anybody's interested in doing that. So if you are, then you can see I'm doing that on March 15th, $75 at the store, and I'll be glad to show you how I do all those edits to make 48-inch long prints, stuff of that nature. Again, an example, something like this is Buck Tower, something I would have put together as far as doing stuff like that, where you can get all the detail. When you print it up, you got 48 inches of lovely details to pull out. Some of you might already do that. Great. Some of you might not know how. And if you're interested, I'll be glad to teach you how to do that. Not only with gear, but also with the software and how to put it all together. Some of you may have
no, that's interesting. It's a vertical panorama.
Yeah, exactly.
I never think that way.
Yeah, well, yeah, some people got those narrow spaces on their wall, when you go up the stairs or whatever, things like that. You never know where you can put them.
Yeah.
So if you're interested in doing stuff like doing night sky stuff, creating panoramics, this is where the class came from. This idea is creating a panoramic of the night sky. So if you're interested in doing that, this is what I'll be creating one right here. I'm going to be going to Kirby Story Park March 19th. So if you're interested in seeing that, this is where I created this large panoramic out there doing that type of stuff.
Oh, that's very nice.
No, thanks.
Yeah.
Another one out there, same thing.
Oh yeah.
And then another one where I did a vertical one out there too. So stuff like that. So if you guys are interested in doing that, I'll be going to Kirby Story Park. Now, some of you, of course, have done this quite a few times before out there with me. Obviously, it's no charge for any of this stuff. It's just an opportunity to get out there and do it. But obviously, if anybody wants to come out there and they want some pointers or help, of course, I'll be glad to answer questions after I get my setup first. But now this thing I haven't posted anywhere because this is something I'm doing on my own. But I figured I would put it out there anyway in case anybody's interested in doing it or have not heard of this place. It's called Old Car City. On their website, Old Car City USA. It's a place where this guy is has about 40-ish acres worth of old cars just sitting out there in the middle of the fields, and they've literally just let the whole forest grow up around all these cars. He's ostensibly called this place the photographer's capital of the world, and So if you go out there, it's really is what it is. He takes cash only out there. It's $30, and for photographers, and if you're bringing somebody to take pictures of, it's $30 for you and $30 for whoever you're taking pictures of out there too.
Mm.
So I'm gonna be out there. Actually, I'm taking pictures of me and a friend of mine out there on Friday, but on Saturday I'm gonna be out there too. So I'm gonna do 2 days out there. And so yeah. So if you're interested in hanging out with me on Saturday, I'll be glad to do that and hang out there with you if you want to go take pictures of old junkers. If you got an affinity for old cars, I have no idea about anything about cars other than I have one that's got a that leaks oil like no tomorrow. And I need somebody who knows what they're doing about it. There's
So
not
can you,
an army of
Dono, can you still pull parts? Are you gonna go up there and get a new
No,
oil
it's
pan?
not that kind of junkyard. I've got a Kia Optima that's leaking oil. Apparently, it's not leaking oil. It's devouring oil. Oil goes in, and
Yeah,
it disappears.
yeah.
And apparently, the labor alone is like gonna kill me. So
Oh
I'm like,
yeah, yeah,
I'm like, it's cheaper to pour the oil back in, you know.
yeah.
So so anyway, but this place is really cool. It's really fun to photograph, and I've only been able to spend each time. I've only been there twice, and I've only been able to spend there about 30 minutes tops each time. I would really like to spend at least a couple of hours each time to go there, so I don't mind spending a few extra bucks and hanging out there. So if you guys are interested in want to join me, let me know. Email me, and I'll be glad to head out there and go out there. And now this is about 30 miles. They said north of Atlanta. So it's in Georgia. It's in a really interesting town called White City, Georgia. I think Alex, who's here, I think is going with me. He said so.
Yes, I am. Yes, I am, Dana.
So yeah. So if you're interested in going out there, you're more than welcome to join me out there. It's fine. Um, if you guys are interested, again, there's some interesting stuff that's coming up. October 14th is the partial solar eclipse, according to timeanddate.com. This is what should be my view in the city of Venice, according to them. This is what it should look like in Venice. This is what it looked like last time it happened through here. You get those. Of course, I'm not looking at the sky. I'm looking at the ground because I didn't have the solar eclipse glasses. But you can see partial solar eclipse there, looking as it's the shadow is falling through the trees right there. But yeah, so if you guys are interested in doing that type of thing, of course, we got the eclipse. The eclipse on in I think it's in April of 2024. We won't get it. We won't get the whack here, but that'll be happening throughout the United. That'll be happening from I think from Texas all the way up through I think through Indiana and Illinois. I think in that next through that part of the country. So if you guys are interested in checking that out, again, there's going to be the Great Eclipse of 2024 digging its way through the USA. But this will be a partial eclipse, a good way to whet our appetite if you're interested in that.
And Dono, you've got the filters for sale.
No, we don't have them for sale here. Usually what Michael will do is order them for the great eclipse that's coming up.
Okay.
He'll order them before that because
Yeah.
by the time because what happens is they sell out like they disappear. They're probably already starting to get scarce, and next thing you know, we get orders like about 30 or 40 of them, but they disappear real quickly.
I've been very reluctant to do any observing of the sun. And one of the things I hear is that there are counterfeit filters. And the last thing I want to do is go blind, try to take a picture of something. So
yeah, I've got I do have my eclipse shades here at the store, but that's about it.
yeah.
They were like, you got these little eclipse. They're like those 3D glasses you would get at the movie theater.
Right.
Basically,
Right.
they were like the blockers for looking at the eclipse. Yeah.
Because for those of us who hate to be up at 3 a.m, some guys do solar astronomy. You're up in the middle of the day,
Right.
and they're looking at sunspots and things, but you need a pretty sturdy setup for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. So yeah, it's gonna be a lot of fun. I know I don't know if the local Deep Sky Observers Group is gonna be doing anything with it. That's I haven't seen them post anything about that. So that ought to be interesting.
They're back for those interested. They're back on the once a month Saturday nights.
Yeah, I saw that.
Fields. I haven't done anything, but I've seen the emails.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And of course, we'll be doing the low light group will be back up in business, is already started in January, and we'll be doing their next meeting March 28th. And for those of you who still have some old gear rolling around, March 31st, April 1st, you know, I one of the things I get all the time at the store is people coming in and like, well, I don't really want to give up my SLR yet, and I'm like, and that's fine. You don't have to give up your gear yet, but the issue is that, you know, the pipeline is drying up for accessories. There's no more new stuff coming down the pipeline for SLRs. There isn't. So the thing is, you got to decide eventually is that which way you're going to go. You know, either you got to keep your stuff, you keep using it until that. But the problem is, if you're looking to sell your gear or use your gear to get new gear, you know, you can't wait too much longer. So, but you don't have to get rid of it. Just something to think about. So the next trade-in event's coming up March 31st, April 1st. So it's something to think about while you guys are out there ruminating about different stuff out there. Another thing that's coming up that I'm going to be doing in April, again, this is subject to change still, is April 16th. I will give you, I did not shoot the picture that well, rephrase that. I did shoot the Milky Way. I did shoot the Value Jet Memorial. I did not shoot them on the same night. The ones for the other one, the Milky Way was, I had to make this a composite because I still have yet to shoot the Milky Way over the Value Jet. I want to get them both together. That's my goal on April 16th. So one day those two will meet together in one shot if I can. So that's my goal. So every time each time I got Star Trails out there, no problem. I just have, it's either been rain, clouds, or just not my night. So the idea is I want to be able to do that out there, just because I think it would be a nice fitting photograph for this particular memorial. So I think it'd be kind of cool to do if I can swing it. The other thing that's coming up that the store does quite a bit is, if you like photographing birds, there's the burrowing owls. Their nesting season is coming up very shortly, and the chicks will be born around this time, hopefully. April 23rd is when the stores should be going down, and they will usually get a vendor to come down with us, so we might have some long glass to take with us. Again, this is still subject to change, so that's something again to keep on lookout for that type of stuff.
Dono, I think the last time this was up, it was canceled because of COVID.
Yeah,
it's the first time back, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Because I missed it last time.
Yeah, the very last time we did it, Sony came down, and we had some Sony glass to take with us.
Yeah.
Then Tamron came down with us one time, and but I'm trying to remember who was down before that. But yeah, we'll be going down. Where the goal is to go down there this year, and I don't know who Michael I know is asking to see if the store manager is asking to see who can go down with us this time around.
Yeah, that would be a lot of fun.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm gonna do a quick gear review here real quick, then we'll jump into the photo review. All right, I haven't seen, what time is it now? Bring it too far. Keep an eye out for Glidden when he shows up. Goodbye, gear. Hello, gear. Like that? Deer, gear. Get it? No, never mind. No. That's the best joke I got all night, guys. Just letting you know. So what happened is that most of you know I shoot Olympus, right? So what happened was Johnson Photo Imaging is taken on Panasonic now, and so the Panasonic rep was here, and they was talking about that stuff. So I decided that now was the time to switch over from Olympus to Panasonic, but not to the Panasonic Micro Four Thirds, but into their full frame. So I've jumped back to full frame. There's a couple of reasons why I did that, but the reason why I switched back to full frame I just felt like it was time. I was getting, it's not that Micro Four Thirds is bad or horrible or any of that stuff, but I really wanted to make things a little bit different I wanted to change up my work a little bit. I wanted to make it just a little bit different. And I think I'm going to get a very, very happy results with it. Now, keep in mind, I was very happy with what the latest version of the Micro Four Thirds system that I had. It was very lightweight. That I can't tell you how awesome that was. The lens selection was awesome. The GPS log was standing, even logging the altitude that I was at, which was even, I thought that was cool. Not that you need to know what the altitude was, but I just thought that was pretty nerdy and cool. Most importantly, a unique feature which I loved immensely, which was called Live Composite, and an art filter that I really liked. And the weatherproofing was awesome. It took I was caught in the rain, I don't know how many times, trying to shoot pictures or getting, when I'd be out at the beach or whatever, getting salt spray on it, and either with my EM1 or EM1X, I was really happy with Olympus product when it came to that type of stuff. But I went to the S5 too. Now, the reason why I went with these guys is the fact that not only is the camera very lightweight in its class, it's still about the same pixel count with a full frame as mine, which is a slightly more 24 versus 20. It's got the same weatherproofing, and it's also going to have live composite in the future firmware. So I'm going to have live composite with full frame. Now, again, for those who have not used live composite or didn't know about live composite, it's something that I'm looking forward to seeing in this particular system. If you've ever done star trails and you've done it in a computer with Lightroom, it's pretty much the same thing, except it's doing it in the camera. You can see it happening while you're doing that. So you can make on the spot decisions while you're doing it if you want to change the composition, which is really kind of cool. The other thing too is what I really like about this, and as a way of cooling the camera down in there. It has a unique fan system in there, which I really like, because was getting, not that I was getting trouble with the heating in it, but it was something that was concerned for me on some of my Olympus gear, because I was really pushing it through some of the things I was doing with some of the heat that I was doing. I was like, oh my God, it's going to blow up. I just thought maybe it was, I'd have to wait for, because by the time I was done and put the camera away, this felt really kind of warm. So now it has a fan in there that I can actually control if I want to make the fan work hard or light work in there. So it has a lot of unique features. Now I just got it, so I really haven't put it through really hard paces, but I'm looking forward to seeing how it's all going to work through within the system.
Dono, the fan, I'm sorry, the fan is a great thing to have for your astro work to cut your noise down. And you're doing it in Florida. So if anyone needed a fan, it was, you're not doing it up in Maine. So I think the fan's a great, does any other I haven't heard of that in any other camera.
Yeah, well, I mean, the other video cameras have it, but they're really big and bulky. So the fan is actually underneath here, pulls in, and there's two exit exhausts right here on either side of it.
Yeah.
So what happens is the air gets sucked in there and goes through there. So and again, according to Panasonic, that is what it's designed to, again, keep dust and moisture out.
Yeah.
So I have to take it for their word for it. Again, I've seen their videos where they dump water on the system. So, I have to take their word for it. Of course, they have their Leica lens on there, not their Lumix lens on there. So, so again, I'm not, this lens is not rated for that weather resistance, not like their Leica stuff. But I did get to play with their 24 to 72.8. I'm very happy with that lens. So I'm looking forward to expanding my line in that particular category. The only drawback not drawback, but again, I'm getting back into heavier lenses now. So, so you might hear me grumble now and then with that, but I'm still very happy with the overall, at this point, very happy with it. So, and I'm looking forward to, so happy to go with some of that stuff.
Great.
So if you guys get a chance to check out some of the stuff we stopped in the store, I'll be glad to go over some of the stuff. Be happy to talk to you about it if you want to later on and things like that.
So Dono, is the Olympus, is that your camera for sale?
No, that's the retail price for both of these things. I don't know if there's a current rebate on these things, so yeah.
But very interesting.
All right. Any other questions for anything else? No. All right. So a couple of questions I had, and I'm not sure if it's you folks here, but people have been asking me about the self-assignment, about about some of the ins and outs. At least I've been getting some of those questions after some of the we're doing it. So let me just kind of go over some of the ideas or the genesis of some of this stuff. Joe Eidelman, who is a photographer up in Pennsylvania, kind of gave me some of the ideas for doing some of the thoughts behind the questions, or at least the some of the things I've put into the self-assignment challenge. And also Jeff Leinbach, who gave me some of the ideas also about what types of self-assignments, and not all of them, but the idea of putting out there for self-assignments and stuff like that. Because one of the things that I do constantly all the time, this is how I get some of my jobs and stuff like that on the side, is that I'll go out and do just for fun, just to shoot something. And I call them self-assignments, or that's what Jeff called self-assignments. I never really called them a self-assignment. I'll be out shooting something, and we be talking to someone. Next thing you know, card is exchanged, and next thing you know, you got a job doing it. And Jeff would call that a self-assignment. I thought that was pretty cool. And then I said, well, it'd be kind of cool to be, offer that as an idea to do something. So the idea is to do a challenge where you get to experiment to do something you haven't tried before and play around with different approaches. And not make it a contest, but basically a challenge with an open and online critique moderated by me, and for allow everyone an opportunity to talk about some of their work and go over that. The theme for this particular one was to basically be about the world of black and white. Now, the idea was to include not only about the settings that you use, but also the equipment that you used. Now, this is where I get the stuff from Joe Eidelman. Joe Eidelman basically came up with these, but said I should think about including these things because they inform whoever's behind there to give you an honest, or hopefully an informed critique about your particular image, because it helps inform where the light was coming from, what equipment you were using. So that way it gives them hopefully an understanding of what tools that were available to you to do that. You don't want to say, well, if you use this, then this and this, that doesn't matter. It's the tools you have to do the job. That way, when you see somebody else's and they're using different tools, you get to understand, well, that's the tools they had, so this is why some of these things. But the most important thing was that he said, why did you take the shot? And Joe said these were the questions, and then I agreed with him that what was the goal? Why did you achieve it? If you could change, what would you do to change it? And this basically helps inform not only yourself, but also, the others when they're looking at your photos. So, whether it's just something to stretch yourself and everybody else, but this is to basically trying to get yourself out there to move along. So, for instance, like in this particular picture as an example. So what I tend to use in some of these things is like I try to put the aperture, shutter speed, and ISO if I know what the picture is from someone who presented it, and so I can put that out there and have that out there so you can guys look at it. I try to use these things to these icons here to basically show this as a presentation part of it. And then what happens is once I know you have those information, you can see it right there, so somebody doesn't have to always go blah, here it is. And once that's there, then I can basically say, okay, well, this is the picture. This was shot at this aperture, this this thing. But that's not the whole detail of everything, because this now, if you know what gear I was using with the Olympus EM1 Mark II with a lens that was at 12 millimeters and 10-second shutter speed. And if you know what lens and gear I was using, this was micro 4/3, 12 millimeters, a 10-second. But then you find out also too that I was also using something that was called live composite. Live composite is basically built in the camera that says captured for two. So it starts building upon itself. So you find out there was more going on other than took the picture and that was it. This is all fine and dandy, but this is all technic babble, stuff like that. And not everybody's going to have this in their particular camera. The next thing is only important is like, well, why the hell did I take the picture? What was so important about this particular picture? The picture, again, is only important to the person who's taking it. Now, again, I take pictures not just for myself, but also I want to share them with, with other people too. So the idea is, I try to, if I can, try to motivate people by sharing my landscape photos with them and hopefully inspiring them to make them feel something about landscapes and about their spot in the world. And this is, I use this quite a bit to describe landscapes as a way for me to connect myself to the world, watching our sun, moon, stars, and galactic core rise. I can almost feel our tiny world drifting through this great enveloping cosmic dark. For me, there's no more humbling experience. It's kind of paraphrasing Carl Sagan in a way and this type of thing. But the idea is this is what I try to achieve through through my landscapes. It doesn't mean I always succeed, doesn't mean I always, but sometimes I feel like I succeed at it. Sometimes I feel like I don't do it. But the idea is this is what I try to do. And the settings and everything else that builds up to that particular moment is where I start from. But you got to think of the settings as like basically the like the sketch building into this particular moment. Everything else is to get to this particular product, which is for me to connect myself to what's going on out there. And that to me is what I'm hoping, that is what I'm doing. So whenever I do a self-assignment challenge, it's trying to make sure that I'm succeeding, that I'm improving, and then why the hell am I doing this? Why am I driving myself crazy doing everything? And that's pretty much about it. So hopefully that kind of encapsulate basically why I've been doing these self-assignment challenges for over a year now, why I've started doing these things, and why it's been kind of like a driving force for me to not only try to jumpstart everyone into this type of stuff, or not everyone, not jumpstart you, but to encourage people to try these things and see where it gets you. It doesn't mean everybody's got to do it. Doesn't mean everybody's got to participate. But I'm hoping that when people watch these things on YouTube and stuff like that, that may inspire them to try something new, something unique, and go from there. All right. Any questions?
No, very good.
All right. I'm going to move on down. All right. I think I saw Glidden show up. Hey, Glidden, how you doing?
Oh, there he is. Hi, Glidden.
So let me go over a couple of things for folks who are not entirely sure what's going on with the black and white stuff. So these are just some of the things about black and white when I deal with black and white stuff. The value is, you got to when you're dealing with black and white, you're dealing with just the values. The value is basically defines how light or dark a given color or hue can be. The value scale helps to create the illusion of depth in a two-dimensional artwork. The brighter the value, and this is the key thing, the brighter the value, the more it pushes out the image. The lower the value, the more it recedes. I'm using my hands. I usually do this in my classes. I don't know if you can see it in the video, but my hands, the lower the value, the more it recedes into the image. The color photography, yellow and green typically have a higher value. Red and blue have a little lower value. And black and white, you remove all the colors of the photo, so you're left only just the values. So whites are the highest value, blacks, of course, are the lowest value. So when you look at a typical color wheel and you reduce it, right? This is the colors that you have. But if you notice, look at here's remember we said right here too on the thing about red and blue have lower value, yellow greens have a higher value. So here's yellow, green, reds and blues, right? If you reduce it, red and greens, red and blue, yellows, red and blues and yellows and greens. That's pretty much true. You go into a much more, smooth out or millions of colors type of thing, again, it kind of works out the same way. So when you're looking at these things, you're looking at a black and white, you're actually playing around with complementary colors. When we're talking about complementary colors, we're not talking about necessarily what we call primary colors that are complementary to each other. That's the stuff that we used to do back when we would do paintings, like red is complementary blue, red, green, blue, orange, purple, yellow, stuff like that. So, and these are what they refer to as complementary colors that push and pull against one another and stuff like that. So when we're thinking about that, though, when we do most of our digital stuff, we're actually thinking about more magentas and greens, reds and cyans, because we're looking on monitors and digital things. So the complementary colors are slightly different in that type of thing. So you can see, though, that's going to play a little bit different than what we would normally associate with what we think is complementary colors. Now, I've used this quite a bit over the years with this Kodak color patches when I'm talking about this in some of the classes I've done. But I always thought this worked out pretty well because, again, it kind of emphasizes really quickly, if you're using a red filter, how the color changes between different tones, cyan, darker, and stuff like that. And if you use like a green filter, how the color tonal changes again. If it's green, it goes darker and lighter. For green, magenta gets darker. And then if you, of course, you put a blue filter on, well, blue gets lighter. And then, of course, yellow gets darker. So again, if you're working on a red rose or a red colored flower, and then you put black and white, just regular black and white, no changes. And then you put it as a red filter, your reds really get lighter, your greens would get darker. Put a green filter on, well, your reds will get darker and your greens will get brighter, and so forth and so forth. So again, it's one of those things that you can kind of play around with as you're working around there. The cool thing with Photoshop is that you can actually tweak those filters pretty easily by changing those colors around in there. And it's like seeing those filters change on you like that. Then back in the good old days with film, you would actually put that in front of your red filter in the front of your camera, or a blue filter or a yellow filter, and you wouldn't see these results until much later. So you would use a red number filter 25 pretty much for most of your black and white stuff if you were shooting a lot of stuff that was a lot of landscape and things like that, because that would basically make your greens darker and whatnot and so forth. So it was something you would play around with. That's why infrared, your greens are pretty much white, stuff like that. So it's kind of fun to play around with. All right. So when you're playing around with black and white, you can actually de-emphasize certain colors and change the overall shape of the way the colors define your subject. So again, if you look at her lips right here, all this red and all this color is defining her in the shape of her face. But as soon as you start changing the tonal range, changing the color, or taking away the color, it actually de-emphasizes some of the shape around her face right there, and really emphasizes her mouth and emphasizes the shape of her form and stuff like that. It's really kind of cool. It's a lot of fun to kind of play around when you start playing around with some of the color, even though you haven't done anything to change her particular shape or whatever, or your subject shape. By changing the color, you can actually de-emphasize or re-emphasize certain things a lot more in there. You know, her face, I think, it's lost with all the red in there by de-emphasizing the color that's in there, just by reducing it just to the value in there. The red lips really stand out against the less red of the face, because there's more yellow in there than anything else. Playing around with some of the stuff in the edits right there, you can get some really interesting landscapes just by playing with the modifications that Lightroom or Photoshop or Luminar Neo or Capture 122 or any of those programs give you to play around with that stuff. Emphasizing landscapes, Ansel Adams, considered probably the foremost photographer in the U.S., got the Presidential Medal of Freedom. I've talked about him before. This is the diving board, 35,000 feet above in Yosemite Valley. Basically, it's one of his things. The thing that made this for Ansel probably is more recognized things for him is that it's the one of the times he'd been able to realize the desired image. The last shot of the day is before he put all his gear away. He realized how it was going to look when he was going to print it. So I thought that was really cool. And for me, I thought that was an amazing thing. This is what it looks like in color from Kita Yong. And he shot this here in 2010. But I thought it'd be fun to kind of see what they would look like if you reversed everything.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's an amazing, between the two, that, it's how everything dramatically changes from all that stuff. I know I still have a big kick out of looking at.
No. I'm sorry. Can I say something about Ansel Adams?
Sure.
Because I'm finding that there's a lot of snarkiness about Ansel Adams now. Like, oh, he's this saint and we're doing our own thing. And don't tell me about Ansel. I've run into this in the last few years. And his point in his books is that you visualize the image you want to produce. You're not just slavishly reproducing reality. You have an artistic vision and you use your equipment to get it, which is what you're saying. And I just bring it up because he used a dark red filter, not just to darken the sky, but to darken the face that's in the light because the shadow is blue. So he's darkening that whole face that's starting to fall in the blue skylight shadow.
Right.
And he didn't see this in the viewfinder. I mean, back then this was all done. And then many steps later, the image comes out. But if there's anything about the black and white, I think it's to shoot mindfully and think about these things and don't be in a rush. And what am I trying to get here? And how do I achieve it? So your points on the tonalities, what you're looking for, how you can post-process, I think they're extremely well taken.
Yeah, because there's a lot of things you can do. I mean, you can always shoot everything in color. That's the easy thing to do. Let me rephrase it. Not an easy thing to do, but you can shoot. Everything is shot in color these days. But when you're shooting in color, and if you deliberately know you're going to take everything and turn it into black and white later on, then thinking ahead, you're working, you can either shoot in black and white and go with and do that. Or when you're doing that, you just remember that you're playing not only with the yellows, or keeping that yellow-green idea in your head, or remembering that contrast. I mean, I grew up shooting black and white, so it's easier for me to think about that in that type of detail.
Right.
So whenever I was shooting, here's something like Dorothy Lang. Dorothy Lang shot this originally in black and white, right? So this would be something she would compose, and she's looking at the tonal range, and she's visualizing, or if not, whatever she is doing, she, can't speak for her, but I would assume she's composing the picture. She's looking at the light. She's doing the composition. I'm assuming she's seeing color there, but there's no way knowing what type of color that's there for that type of thing. So she's looking at this type of stuff, taking the picture. I mean, we can go in there and colorize it ourselves, but it's not the same thing. And to me, I think it loses some of the dramatic appeal, because this, to me, is much more dramatic. It's much more, empathetic. And it's like, somewhere where you feel more for this woman, this type of thing. It's the same thing when you're dealing with Ansel Adams' stuff right here. If you're dealing with his stuff, back up. Working with, I find more, it's not that I think Keating Young's stuff is bad. I love that. I think it's great. It's got a really sense of dramatic color and stuff. But when I see Ansel stuff, it's still that ginormous rock, just boom, is right there.
It feels like another world.
Exactly.
That black.
Yeah. And there's something almost, transcendent sometimes what you see with black and white that you don't get sometimes with color. And that's not that color can't be done in that way. I mean, this is a prime example with Steve McCurry's. Afghan girl, this is something that really takes you away, takes your breath away when you look at her. And when you take her and put her into black and white, I think it kind of loses it. The eyes are still there, they're still piercing, but having those green piercing eyes versus gray piercing eyes,
Yeah.
I think is where sometimes where color, I think, is where it's more in there.
Yeah. You've got the strong complementary red and green.
Right.
And the face really pops out of that, and the face gets a little lost in the monotone look.
Right.
I think if the color's not part of the subject, it's distracting. And here it's clearly part of the subject, and it
Right.
should be there.
Exactly. So like I said, it's all depends on what the intended result is going to be, and like I said, color, I think is something that you really have to pay attention to, and if you really want to make, transcendent black and white photos, you really have to pay attention to the color. You especially, into with your digital cameras these days. You can, you can flip a switch and make it black and white, but paying attention to the color is just as important as more so than anything else than when you're flipping it around with all the stuff. So like I said, when you're playing around with this stuff, the best thing I can tell you when you're playing around with black and white is pay attention to your yellows and greens, your reds and blues, because that will translate when you're looking at your black and white to when you remove all the colors, all you have left are the values. And the whites are the highest values of blacks. If you have a nice blue sky and you have a white moon, and you take out the tonal range, that white moon's gonna pop out against that blue sky at that point.
Yeah.
So it's one of those fun little things that's really kind of cool. Any questions about any of that stuff, guys? No.
Very good.
Cool. All right, I'm gonna jump ahead into this. I'm gonna kind of blow through mine a little bit here real quickly. And then we'll jump into everybody else's. So this one won't take too long here. Unless somebody wants to ask me lots of deep personal questions.
That's some pretty radical stuff, Dono. The one on the left, the rail, that's like the tracks to oblivion or something. That's
So the only reason that these two in color are here is to represent the fact this is pointing out where the light is on the black and white. So you can see I shot one here. She's with this light behind her. There, the light's hitting her right there. So this is all at the same time. So basically, this was shot a few years ago. This was back in 2013. And to be honest, I forgot about this picture. And it wasn't until she reminded me about this photo, basically a couple of days ago in Facebook land, that we did this photo 10 years ago. And I thought, well, this will be great for the assignment, even though it's not recent. And I have some recent things, but I'll show that at the very end later on. But I thought this was kind of cool with this particular photo, because I was very happy with this photo with this one. So anyway, so let me move some of this stuff around here just a second here. You bastard. Here, now I can see some things. So this was shot with a crop sensor system right here, nothing too fancy, and basically around I think it was like 35 millimeters. I did this to Photoshop, nothing fancy. I just basically, slid this all into black and white. I did some vignetting a little bit in there, not too much, but really I didn't really do any really heavy editing as far as that was concerned. I bumped up the contrast a little bit. This was a photo shoot that was a fun little shoot where we did was called Heroes and Villains. She was dressed up as what they call Tank Girl. And what was happening was that there was a bunch of other people dressed up in costume. And we were out there by in Lakeland shooting this one right there. And this is before I found out that I should not have been on the train tracks. But luckily no train came down to tear us down. So that was good. but the moon was there. It was mostly full, and I thought that was kind of cool. So I lined her up under the moon, and she was already in her tank girl persona, so it worked out really well for that particular thing. And I was very, very pleased with the way it worked out. I don't know, other than there wasn't any particular thing other than to just try to see what I can come up with in the with the lighting hitting her the way it is. I think I did fairly good with the light, because it was just no other light source other than the sun hitting her. I was just trying to make sure that I was make sure the light was hitting her fairly even across there. I didn't want to have any shadows in her eyes. It was worked out pretty well. I didn't have to worry so much where her hair was, because it pretty much stayed out of her eyes. There's some shadows here and there, but again, I'm not too worried about that. The clouds actually worked in my favor for a change. Again, fairly happy with that particular thing. So overall, I was fairly pleased with the results. So not too terribly bad. When at least I don't feel bad about it. She was happy about it. I eventually I did give her a print of this particular one, and she, when I gave it to her, she was a little bit crestfallen, because I was like, "Why?" I go, "Why? What's wrong?" She said, "Oh no, I love the print." But she said when she was taking it home, she goes, "Wherever I bring a date home," she says, they're kind of her room, I guess, is full of pictures of her." So, so yeah, so it was kind of like one of those things. This one right here, this was a landscape photo that I shot without any filters when I shot it. I had to try to bracket this like by 3 stops, and I ended up stacking this in Photoshop. But the settings were pretty much on this one right here at about, and I think I bracketed with I'm trying to remember. I think I just bracketed with the aperture right here is what I ended up doing. So I bracketed it by 3 stops on the aperture right there. So I wanted to, so I was mainly trying to make sure I didn't lose some of the detail back here. I don't remember why. What's the bracket? No, I used exposure compensations when it was. So I think it was the ISO that
Okay.
got bracketed on that. So that's what it was. So yeah, so that's what I ended up doing on that. So, and the idea was to try to get as much of those clouds in there as much as I could without losing the detail. So again, this is one of those landscapes where I really like the power of the river as I was going through there. This is the Del Rio River here in Tennessee. I thought it worked out. Again, was very pleased with the fact that I got that in there. This was like, again, really bright day, and the fact that I was able to recover that in the bracketing, I was very happy with that. I did have to process this differently. It's like working in the dark room back in the day, where I had to burn this area down and
Yeah.
dodge this area right here, and then burn this area down a little bit more. So it was kind of like working in the dark room than those days. So that was kind of a fun right there. So yeah, it was a lot of fun on that particular one.
And Dono, I think that because color, when you're shooting landscape, color gives you layering. Blue
Yeah.
sky, green trees, brown, you lose all that. So usually you find that you have to dodge and burn, however you're going to do that in Photoshop, to
Right.
bring back the structure of the landscape when you're doing black and white.
Yeah. Yeah. The river wasn't even a blue river, of course. It's one of those, muddy brown rivers.
Yeah,
And,
yeah.
so, so there's that going against it. The sky was, it was one of those not blue skies, but it was kind of like a grayish sky with some whitish clouds in there, nothing too fancy, as far as sky goes. So it was my best way to get as much of that stuff in there as I could.
Well, it looks great.
Oh, thank you. Same thing with this one right here. This was after a rainy day, and there was some overcast, but the sun was just starting to peek out through the clouds and stuff. So when I went through this particular shot, I was basically more main concern was trying not to lose the detail in the reflection. So the exposure was just for that. And I did dodge in this particular area right in here just to try to recover some of the shadow detail. The main concern though was making sure the exposure in this one right here was trying to get that. In my back of my mind, I keep thinking I should probably fix that, but I don't know. I keep going back and forth on that one. Again, this is micro 4/3 on this particular one, but I'm still pretty pleased with this particular one. Again, when I'm shooting landscapes, that whole idea is just trying to get people involved with the idea that this is an antique store, an antique, yeah, it's the antique of antique stores. It's the store is such an antique, it's an antique. And I just find that just sad and amusing at
Yeah.
the same time. That type of thing. And then there's also reflection of the antique in there. So there's all sorts of double entendre / meetings going on in there. I think it's still there off of 75. And I'm hoping that I'll see that again when we go to Georgia again. Maybe, I don't know. So
Yeah.
we'll see how that goes. But anyway, it's an interesting place to photograph. So I'm hoping it's still there. This is a Bach Tower right here, of course. And that's the detail of it. I think I like the detail more than I like this one right here, but it's still a pleasing picture to me either way. I like the idea. I get the little bit of reflection on there and that little bit of light that's cutting through the side right here on that. So that worked out for me again. I did, again, most of the edits there. I did have to emphasize the color structure of here, because if you've ever seen Bach Tower, it's got that light pink tone to it. So if you don't emphasize the marbling of the color tone in there, it gets kind of lost because it kind of blends in a little bit of there. So you have to kind of pump up the color, the vibrancy a little bit in there to get those tones to kind of shake back and forth on each other. So if you don't do that, then it gets, like I said, I think it gets kind of lost in there. Otherwise, it looks like just a standard grayish tone throughout the whole entire thing. So when I was working on that particular one, that's what I ended up doing. The main thing was trying to make sure I didn't lose the vibrancy of this. Again, this is in the shadow of here. So you can see I'm exposing for this. So there's a lot of highlights that I've lost in that particular thing. Not too terrible, but again, burning and dodging in select areas to help bring in some of the details. When I'm shooting mostly black and white stuff, I deliberately, when I'm shooting canopies of trees and stuff like that, I'm always looking up at the trees. Again, this is another shot from the Bach Tower again. I'm constantly looking up at the trees, and I'm looking for patterns and shapes and stuff. So I always like that type of stuff. I think it's cool, and I always think it's a lot of fun to kind of see that type of stuff as it kind of forms in there. It kind of reminds me of those ink drawings where you would drop the ink down and blow on it with a straw, like the ink form these little patterns and stuff. Or maybe that's something I did at my school, I don't know, but it was a lot of fun doing that. And I always thought that was kind of cool to see that type of patterns kind of full. So when I'm doing that, I'm trying to put the tree off to a certain side, and I can see it kind of work that pattern through there. Sometimes I see shapes like a hand kind of reaching out over there onto that side or something like that. Or maybe it's the mushrooms I did, I don't know. But that's the kind of stuff that I'm working on when I'm looking at the canopy of trees. And I'm always trying to emphasize the shape and the form when I'm doing stuff like this, because when I'm looking at the sky like this, I know I'm going to get a lot of contrast. There's going to be a lot of high to brights and a lot of shadows. So I got to make sure that if there is going to be some grayness in there, some of the leaves and stuff like that, and it's got to kind of be it's got to be balanced out with some of the highlights in there. So when I'm working on that type of stuff, I got to make sure it gets kind of balanced out. If I did this in color, and I didn't print out the color ones, but the color, then I have to find out some sort of way to balance that out with color, with complement color scheme, and work that out in there. Now this one I think works much better in black and white than it did in color. That's why I did that in color. I did fix the horizon line. The horizon line when I shot this was actually straighter. But I like the building straight. So the horizon line's got a curve straight. That's why the building looks straight and the horizon line curved. But this is Florida. Florida's flat, and so this is that's why that looks kind of weird like that. But I did really burn down this a little bit to emphasize the storm. So that was kind of a fun little thing right there. I did play a little bit with the green value back there to be really whiten that up. So that way it makes it really vibrant up against the steel, because this was backlit. according to with all that right there. You can see that's in the shadows right there. So again, I'm trying to push this value. I'm trying to emphasize all the white around here, which is this yellowish greenish grass, this right here, but it's got this dark clouds. But again, the sun is coming peekingish through there a little bit. So it's pushing all the shadow towards this way. Not much, because you can see the shadow, the sun's fairly high up there. So again, but I'm really trying to push that through there. So, but since I'm shooting raw, I'm able to recover some minor detail in there.
Yeah. Oh, man.
All right.
I wasn't expecting to see that.
All right. You guys ready? You ready, Kevin?
Yeah, sure, Donna.
All right. Heading on up. All right.
Okay, so we gotta pull it down. Well, you've set the bar very high, Dono. I'm almost embarrassed to talk about these.
Oh, stop. Yeah, I thought this was wonderful. I thought this was awesome.
You're Jeff Lineback, right?
Yeah.
When he spoke a year or two ago, he took that picture of the DuPont Children's Hospital.
Right.
He asked me if he was using a tilt shift lens, and he said, of course. So I bought myself a used Nikon tilt shift lens for this.
Okay.
And why did I take it? This is on Deer Isle, about 15 minutes from where we rent in Maine. It's over a bridge. And it's the first thing you almost see when you go over the bridge and head up to the north end of the island. And I said, man, that is a spectacular looking wooden church. So I waited, I had a week of clear blue sky. And then I had one day where a little of this, we had a cold front and a little cirrus clouds moved in. I thought I'd better take my opportunity now. So I stood in the road and dodged the pickup trucks. I did pretty good, I think, on the verticals. Now that I've got my large format camera, I could start doing, rear standard tilts and things to really straighten it out. But I was very pleased, and this was always going to be a high contrast shot. So it's the D850 and the tilt shift lens, and nothing's on a tripod, nothing, natural light, and then it's close to out of camera, but I burned the roofs, I burned the shadows, I dodged a little bit of the bright side of the church, and I did a ton of retouching because there's the wheelchair ramp, the fire extinguisher, all that stuff. The lines, the telephone lines, I took all of that out. So I like it. And I like it as a real punchy, high contrast church. And I think it's got a lot of solidity to it. It feels substantial to me. So I felt like I did what I wanted to with this one.
I thought that you came out. I really liked it a lot, and I thought that was, like you said, nice contrast. You got some great lines in there. The sky was in your favor. Every time you get a sky in your favor, that's a bonus, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And trying to get that nice, because I've been doing a lot of sky. Well, I shouldn't say I've been doing a lot, but I really like sky replacement. Because
not you. Like everyone is replacing their skies except.
Well, you go out there, you plan for do a shoot, you get out there, and it's like, this is not the sky I want.
Let me just say this about that, Dono, and I know I'm a minority, and there's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with replacing the sky, but Ansel Adams, he has the mule and he's got the 8x10 camera,
right,
and he's up there in Yosemite, and he's waiting a month to get the right sky.
Right, exactly.
And now you just drop. At least it's good if it's your own sky you're dropping in. Some people are dropping other people's skies in.
Right.
So I find it disturbing. But that's all I'll say about it.
That's fine. That's perfectly fine. But I really like this one a lot. I think you got some. That's a really nice. It's a nice strong piece right there.
Well, thank you.
All right, and I really like this one too. It's just again, nice strong piece. I love the composition here.
Yeah. So this is a real homage. I shot a whole bunch of calla lilies after Robert Mapplethorpe. And I was onto this before Selby got into it. And this is one of his compositions. And so it's a straight copy, but it's in camera. I have a white and a black board at diagonals. I've got probably a diffused light on the right, and I've got a grid on the left. And I played with the light. I kept the light off the black. I got the light on the white, the spill. And again, looking for, it's a high, his photo as well as a high contrast photo, as you would expect if you've got this harlequin looking black and white background to it. So if you don't like it, blame Robert Mapplethorpe. Don't blame me. So,
well, like I said, I really love the visual. I think it's a really strong piece. It's like I said, it's the dichotomy between the black and the white, and like I said, when you said Mapplethorpe, I go, oh, that's I get the homage to the whole thing.
Yeah, because he did well. He's famous for his portraits,
right,
of various lifestyles.
Yeah, exactly.
But he also loved to shoot the flowers, and he said, "I like shooting the flowers because they don't look back." So,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I thought that was a success as a copy.
Yeah. And I thought this was pretty cool too.
Yeah. Thank you. Go ahead, Dono.
Well, I was going to say, one thing I like about this is that one of the things I get a lot, at least here at the store, is whenever somebody comes in the store and they're like, well, and they ask me to look at their pictures and stuff. One of the things they always, and I said, they're showing me pictures of the shot outside. I said, well, you need to use a flash. I have to use a flash. I said, yeah, you need to use a flash, but it's outside. Yes, you need to use a flash.
Yeah.
So when I saw that, I said, well, there we go.
Well, there you go. I had this, I walked past this. There was an exhibit in our Brooklyn, Maine library. A woman had done beautiful pencil drawings, botanical drawings. And I had that in my head. And then the next day I walked, this is on our driveway for our rental. And I saw this white thing. And I said, I'd love to see that white against black. So we had about 2 days later, got an overcast day, set the camera up on the tripod and set it up for ambient light metered. And then I had the flash is on the left, and I have a grid on it, so there's no spill onto the foliage. And I set it up with the light meter, and then I gave it an extra third of a stop to really make the white pop. And then I turned the camera setting down 1 2/3 stops. So that foliage behind is bright, but I turned the camera exposure down so that I'm underexposing the foliage, but the flash is taking care of the flower and getting that at actually slightly above normal. So that's the way I got the very bright white and the very dark. And I played with it because I wanted that, I wanted content in the shadows. I wanted you to see the leaves, but I wanted that to be like zone 3, zone 4, something like that. But I didn't want it to go completely black and be a silhouette.
Right.
And again, this is my favorite. We're on, lighthouses and stuff. This is my favorite picture from the 8 weeks up in Maine, this one.
So you just said zone 3, zone 4. Do you want to explain what zone 3 and zone 4 is?
Only because I'm doing all this film stuff and I'm trying to figure out how to expose these pictures. So Ansel Adams started the zone system and others have elaborated, and it's nothing complicated. It's basically, when you have your camera and you meter on neutral gray, 18%, that's zone 5. You're in the middle of your exposures.
Right.
If you go down 2 stops, 2 exposure stops down, zone 3 is where you're going to see shadows with detail. Below that, you're pretty much going to see black. And the same thing above, you go zone 5, you go zone 6, zone 7, you're seeing highlights with detail. Once you start getting up like 9 and 10, it's starting to look pure white. And you know, people can make a fetish out of it, but it's really just kind of a seat of your pants. What are my exposure values in a scene, and how am I thinking about it? And in film, you have to think a little more because you got to press the button and then see the thing 4 days later. You know, you could overexpose your pictures in digital and then just change your setting and there's no big deal. But
Right.
it helps sometimes to think that way.
Yeah, exactly. So when so if anybody was when you hear somebody like like me or Kevin or somebody talks about the zone system, that's what we're talking about, because this is something that if you shot film at any kind of regularity, this was something that eventually you came up with, or you ran into, or something you had to explore, because this is something you would have to do, or at least think about it at some level, because this is what you would have to do. All right. Any other questions out there, guys, for anything for Kevin on this stuff?
Thanks, everyone.
All right.
Thanks for looking.
Well, Kevin, thank you very much. I like your work. This is really good stuff. I really appreciate that. All right. I'm trying to remember who's next up. Yep, Leanna, you are next. If you're still out there, Leanna.
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Hey, I can hear you. All right. So let's take a look. So this, I thought this was a cool shot that she did. Where was this, at the Ringling? Is this one of
Yes,
the?
it was. And I can begin by telling you that it was all done accidentally, and I just brought it in and just played around with the editing a little bit.
That's fine.
Editing using the Apple photo editor. So I haven't yet graduated to anything beyond that.
That's perfectly fine.
But it was a lot of fun. It was
that's the important bit right there.
On this one, what struck me the most was the dark shadows underneath the chins, and in between the two heads. I found that really defining. And I had just purchased a 20 millimeter lens, first time shooting that focal length. And it was a lot of fun and interest going up close and seeing what the camera could do. I was using the Sony. I shoot with a Sony. I'm a Sony shooter, and I have the pleasure of using the A7 IV these days.
Yeah, that's a really nice camera. It has a really nice grip to it, nice feel to the whole thing. At least I like it. And
yes.
Which lens you say you have, the Sony G Master or G?
It was not a G Master. It was a 20 millimeter G.
Yeah, still a great lens, and that's a great lens too. And
fascinating. Yes, it was good. So for this, I'm looking way out. It almost looks like a bridge going back there. And I kind of like that. I think I like the depth.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like the composition on this too. You did a really great job with it, really emphasizing the sculpture in this one, and with a nice bit of perspective out there in the background. That works out really, really well.
Well, the thing about it, what should I call you? Should I call you Photo, or should I call you Dono? I'm sorry.
Don't call me late for dinner. That's the important. Yeah, no, you can call me Donna or Donovan or whatever's easy.
Donovan. The thing about, I'm a hobbyist, and I've been a hobbyist, it feels like, for decades, and I just love this status. But I don't know how I get something to work. So everything feels like accident, right. Even though I practice a lot. With your class tonight, I kind of understand that you can set your objectives. And you had some nice slides kind of talking about that when you set out with an aim before you actually pull the trigger. So kind of keeping that in mind, I think it's going to bring a certain awareness to the picture taking, so everything doesn't feel so random.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing wrong with, again, there's nothing wrong with it, with random or any of that stuff, because I certainly do enough of that on my own for whatever reason. But you know, the thing for me, when any of the classes I've ever taught, I always tell people, if you really want to get better at your work, it's really real, literally, it's like wax on, wax off. You know, the Karate Kid movie. I always reference that movie because that's what it is. It's like painting the fence 1,000 times. It's like going to that statue and you photograph it 1,000 different ways. And when you photograph it 1,000 different ways, you find out there is really more than one way of doing just that one thing. And when you do it 1,000 ways, you figure it out. And there's other, you know, and I'm not the only one who's ever thought, it's like, it's an old thing that they used to beat in my head every time I go to my photo classes. Like one of my photo teachers used to have on his wall for a quote from Henri Cartier-Bresson. I now he says, now he said it was really rude in French, but I don't know if it's true or not, because, you know, who knows at this point. But it says your first 10,000 pictures were mad, he says, or shit, you know. And
Right.
and I was like going, and he goes, "Is that true?" He goes, "Well, you know." But that's true, because but that was the thing. You had to develop according to Henri Cartier-Bresson's theory, was you had to shoot all this stuff to develop an unconscious response to the type of pictures that you know, to the world around you. So that way, when you started taking pictures, you were unconsciously snapping the picture at that moment, because for them, they had 12 exposures or 24 exposures, and that moment was the only moment you had to take that picture. And that was the moment you took the picture. And that's what you had to decide to do. And that was, you know, and I always thought that was kind of cool, you know, but you never know.
Yeah, that's a lot of food for thought there.
Yeah.
This one, I was just standing up and looking around, taking my time, and I saw the lady dashing out, and I just said, I don't know why, I got to get a picture. And I took it, but before I took it, I told myself, you're going to like this picture. And I took my time, I took it, and I like the picture. And this brings me to another thought. Sometimes there are pictures I take, I know they're not great pictures. I really know that they're not. They might not even be good pictures, but for some reason, I like that picture. And I guess, you know, if I were a storyteller, I would say that the lady satisfied, she took her children to the museum, she's rushing home to cook dinner. But I don't know. Is it a good picture, bad picture? I don't.
Well, like I said, that to me, it gets to be kind of subjective at that point. But that's the thing. What you start doing is you start questioning. You're like, what makes you like this picture? What makes you want to look at the picture? What makes you think other people will like the picture? I think the picture is a good slice of life of Sarasota. It's certainly a good slice of life at the Ringling Museum. You know, there's all sorts of ways you can look at this particular picture. The fact that they got their back to you and they're walking away. You don't know where their future is going to hold for you. You know, it's like one of those things. They're walking towards a future that you just don't know. It's all these little things that, you know, like you said, it's a little bit of story.
So Donovan, there is an element of I one of the things that I do is watch a lot of YouTubes, and I also listen to a lot of podcasts about photography, and I'm understanding that there is a more nuanced world of capturing the world around you, and that is something that there's a connection to words and storytelling and a lot of other elements. So this is new to me. And I think with this one little humble picture, I feel satisfied that that to me, somehow there's a story in the image. So I like it for that reason. It kind of worked for me.
That's good because, like I said, it's like when you look at there's plenty of times I've taken a photo, then I just don't know why I've taken that photo. And I'll look back at it maybe like months later or a couple of days later or even a year later. I'm like, oh, that's why I took the photo, because there was some sort of element in there, whether it was, like you said, a nuanced story or something like that, but something that where my brain saw something that I just didn't quite realize. It hadn't quite bubbled up in my head. And I've tucked it away for a bit. And then I go back to it later and then I find out, oh, that's what I was thinking
Right.
when I was looking at. So like I said, don't be afraid or just take the picture. And what's the worst that can happen? I mean, my photo instructor used to tell me all the time is just take the picture. Look, just you can go, but this is back in film, just go buy more film, take the freaking picture. Don't worry about it. What's the worst going to happen? You just won't make a print,
Right.
In this day and age, you just won't. You just got now. Of course, you got terabytes worth of data now. I love this particular picture because of the way you framed up the architecture on this one. It's a nice little play around with a negative and positive space on this particular one.
This one was fun because it feels clean. I don't know if it's the lighting or you introduced a new word tonight, tonality. I don't know if it is, it feels nostalgic and kind of retro. So I guess the architecture really pops. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a gorgeous place, beautiful building. And I humble myself. I really do, being able to capture this kind of, I guess, history. There is that element of, I don't know, it's a hobby, it's a fun thing to toy around with, but then it can get very serious when you think of what it is you're photographing. And when you do have something that you believe is respectable work, then it's just another element of joy, satisfaction. I like this picture once again because of the sharpness, but I'm very challenged with the technical aspect of, making all of my pictures sharp or not making the pictures sharp when I don't want them to be sharp, and understanding tools that I have at hand and the technology embedded in it. So,
well, that'll come with time, but like I said, the basics are it's just a matter of just coming to understanding the basics with shutter and depth of field. That's just one thing. Most people's reaction to sharpness is limited understanding of those two concepts. Once you figure that stuff out, that really clears up a lot. Your particular camera does a pretty good job at getting a great focus down, and as far as critical sharpness goes. So it does a pretty good job. So if you got a decent lens on there, it's going to be pretty sharp. But where most people get lost in is the fact that depth of field and motion blur are where most people fail to realize where they're losing their sharpness or the critical details or critical sharpness, if that's where they're losing it.
so that's just practice and technical understanding, I guess.
Yeah, basically, it's what it boils down to. But sometimes it's misfocus. There are times when you get a misfocus stuff, but that's common. It doesn't matter. Even if you have 10 grand in a camera, you still get a misfocus. It's just, you think no, not with 10 grand, but yeah, it happens. Yeah, but no, I love again, like I said, I love this particular. You've got some good strong visuals in these particular pieces right here. I really like the shots that you presented tonight, and I really like this particular one too as well, because I love the layering of not only with the reflection, but what's in the reflection, and with the text that's also in there as well too. It's a nice little work on the whole entire thing. It's something that you see a lot, which you see, and if you ever look at some of the stuff, like some of the older photographers, I forget the name. There's an Italian photographer. I forget his name now. I've used his work in the class, but I can't remember his name right off the top of my brain. He made this photograph where he's looking at. You take this photograph, and there's so many. There's a window. There's a mirror. There's a door. And when he's taking the picture, there's all these other things that are going on through these. And when he takes the picture, there's so many things going on. It's an amazing little portal within a portal.
Wow.
A portal type of shot. If I can find it, I'll try to remember to send it to you.
Oh,
But
please
it's a
do.
really cool image. And
I didn't know if this would work, and I'm not sure if I like it that much. I find it a little busy, and I wanted to present it to you as something that it would be like, okay, for this not to have worked, but maybe it does work.
well, again, you got I think again, the business for me works for me. Again, everyone, it's
Right.
like all this stuff is subjective.
Right.
When people look at these things, if somebody says, it doesn't work for me, then that's fine. I mean, my best review I ever got, this is my best review. I one time, the kissing statue, there was a radio contest, was holding a photo contest. A radio station, the Sarasota radio station was holding a photo contest. This was like over 10 years ago they wanted photos of downtown Sarasota. And no worries. You have a great night. Thanks. And what happened was I took the picture of the kissing statue with cars driving around it, right? So there was like little light streaks going around it. But that was the only downtown Sarasota. All my other downtown Sarasota photos were like all abstract, you wouldn't be able, it could have been taken anywhere. No one would have known they were downtown Sarasota. But of course, the kissing statue was the downtown Sarasota photo. For those who don't know downtown Sarasota, look up the kissing statue in downtown Sarasota. It's that old 1940s victory photo of
Yes.
the sailor and the nurse kissing. So he made a ginormous statue of it. Anyway, it's a bit of it. You either love it or you hate it when the statue. Anyway, it doesn't matter. So I took a picture of this thing, right? And it's a bit of contention for some people around here. So it's on display in Facebook, and people are going around, and people are loading up their photos and everything else around there. And what happened is that there was a lot of really cool photos of Sarasota, which I thought were much better than mine, to be honest with you. And somebody was going around and looking at the photos and making little comments about the photos. Now, it was a popularity contest for photos, so people had to click on whether they liked it or not, on it. So it was like. So the more likes you got, if you got the most amount of likes, you win a little gift card at some local restaurant. I forget where.
Mhm. Yes.
So I did all that, and so anyway, so we're going around, and I was getting the most amount of likes, and I was like, "Oh, good! I'm going to get a gift card. I win." So, but anyway, this person was making these comments on the thing, and then the one person, they're like, "Oh, this is great. This is an awesome photo." Blah blah blah, and then they finally get to mine, and the comment is like, "Oh," in big capital letters, "Oh hell no." And I laughed and I laughed, and I was like, finally somebody gets me. And I still won. So I was like, yes.
Mhm.
I felt like I did it. I did it often. I did it right. But no one has ever felt the same way about my work ever.
That's a good story.
But anyway, so what brings me down to is that, whatever, even you'll feel the same way about your work, it doesn't matter. So the
Yes.
idea is that you take whatever I say, whatever everybody else says, and you look at it and you go, that's nice. Thank you very much. Well, you go, I like that. I think I'm going to use that in my stuff, you just move on. But I really I do like this particular one. I think it's a nice composition. I think it's different than what you presented, and so it stands out from the rest. So I like, especially the part that I like is this spot right here the most.
Mhm.
My favorite spot, but that's just me. So
Mhm. Thank you.
Not a problem. Any other comments from anybody else or anything like that? No? All right, Glidden, are you about? I think you're the next contestant up.
Yeah, I have some, but now I'm afraid to talk about them.
What are you afraid? What are you afraid of? I've never heard you be afraid of anything.
You were saying, it's like I'm gonna look like an amateur, total amateur here.
Oh, oh, whatever. And apparently my internet is my browser went away here. Hang on. Oh man, here we go. I found my browser. I got like 16 windows open for Zoom right now. I really need to get my other monitor back up and running here.
Donovan, can you see my face?
No.
Oh, I wasn't sure about that. Okay, well, I'm going to go on mute. I'm here and I
Okay.
don't know what to do to present my face. So
It's okay.
I'm Zoom challenged. But that, I guess it is okay. Let's
If
see.
you start video at the bottom left, if you
Oh,
want.
well, I'm just going to say hello to everybody. Let's try it again.
There you
Here
are.
I am. Hello, everybody. Thank you for watching, for
Great.
viewing my photos.
I'm glad we get to see you.
Okay.
There we go. I found your photos, Glidden. Oops,
Okay.
I deleted them all. I'm sorry. I'm just kidding. All right, so let's share this screen. Share this one. I think I got it. All right, can you see it?
Yes.
Okay. All right, and I think I blow it up. I don't remember how this works. Open image, new tab. Can you see the big one?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Well,
Ooh,
this picture was taken at a session at JPI, and I loved the high contrast of it. Even the reflection in her face, the color photo is bright orange, and I loved the way when it was translated into black and white, the way it looked. Also, the glow in her hands, from the sphere. It looks, to me, I loved it. Loved it. So. And I didn't do too much editing to it. So like I think I played with a couple of filters and so on, but then I thought, no, I'm gonna leave it as it is, right? As it came across in black and white.
yeah, it looks really cool.
Actually, I need to send this version to Kat. I think she would like it.
Yeah, I think she would too. That's cool, man. Yeah, I'll take a look at that, Alex.
Now you got to click on the first step.
I know. Sorry, I'm opening multiple windows. So
Oh, there you go. This one, I play with it for a long time. I think
this is like you've been playing with this one for a long time in color as well too.
Yeah. Basically, I believe Zoom is degrading a little bit because it on my screen looked a little bit better. But it was, to me, an exercise on those gray tones, because since it was a low light picture, you don't have that high contrast. But the light is reflected in a nice way on the dock and so on. So, and the moon still preserve some of its definition.
Right.
If I were to play with, like a high contrast filter and so on, the moon gets so blown off that it wasn't worth it, playing with it anymore.
Right. Well, I like your black and white version. I like the color ones too that you've done too, And I know you've been working on this version because I know you've gone back and forth about the shadow there and stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, the shadow's never been that big of an issue to me. It wasn't until you pointed it out the first time when I noticed it. But to me, I've always liked this particular photo, and I always thought this was really nice.
Thank you.
Yeah. So
I just wanted to say to Glidden, I think that's a great picture. And it looks like a Whistler study in gray. And I
Oh,
think it's
yeah.
great that there's not a lot of black in it, but it's all gray tones. And then another thing I'll say is I always struggle with the moon in these shots. And if I try to mask it and pull down the luminosity, it doesn't look right. If I leave it blown out, it doesn't look right. So I often don't know. I think you've handled it very well here. I often struggle with the moon value in these nocturnal landscapes. But I think this is a great image.
Thank you.
See, there you go, Glidden. See, no,
Okay.
you guys are unbiased.
This image, I played with it for a long time in color, right? And it wasn't until this self-assignment came up that I thought, oh, let me translate it into black and white. Dark in the sky, right? Because that was one of those days that it was not a single cloud on the sky. And to me, it was the feeling of showing how old this pueblo is. This is in Taos, New Mexico. So you could work this area of 50 different ways, but I think the symmetry, the gray shades that you have on the structure against the dark sky and dark mountains, I really liked it in black and white. So
Yeah.
Glidden, what time of day is it?
oh, I think it was maybe 1 o'clock in the afternoon or something like that.
Because it looks like in the movies when they shoot day for night, like when they push it, and you know they'll shoot a nighttime scene in the day, but they get all the lights out, and they underexpose and overdevelop.
Yeah.
It's got a real haunting. I thought was going to ask you if it was moonlight.
No, actually, no, it was 1 p.m. in the afternoon, I believe.
Yeah.
In the middle of winter. So you can imagine, very dry air, no humidity. And then you had to really wait, even though Taos is slowly coming back to the tourists. To give you an idea how bad the impact of the COVID pandemic was for them, you could not in Taos, unless you got a special permit, you could not take pictures. You cannot bring any kind of electronics into the area. No phone, no smartwatch, no cameras, no so on. Now you can see those signs tucked away, and they say, well, as long as you're not shooting for commercial purposes, you're okay to take pictures, except inside the church. And that was it. So
why was it health reasons or something else? Why?
Well,
did they
during
ban
COVID, most of
photography?
the pueblos in New Mexico were totally shut down to the outside.
Okay.
The pandemic really hit them really hard.
Okay.
So they basically said no outsiders whatsoever.
Okay.
So they lost all the tourist revenue right away.
Wow.
I think it's a really evocative picture. I really like it.
Thank you.
Yeah, me too. I really like it a lot.
And then
I love this one. This is really cool.
this last image, this is you can look at on Google Earth. It's called Valles Caldera. Is a old volcanic caldera that blew, I don't know how far away, and it's so huge that I think it's 14 miles across or something like that. So my wife and I have been up here in autumn, and in autumn you had the elk and so on. The only problem with this area is that it shuts down at 5 o'clock, so they kind of kick you out. So for example, I haven't even worked on my elk pictures because they look tiny, right? In the picture, you're far away and so on. But we decided to go up there now that is snow covered. We putz around for a while. Coming back out, I heard somebody at the parking lot saying, "Oh, there is a couple of coyotes out there." but I didn't think too much about it. As we're pulling out of the parking lot and so on, I see the two coyotes in the middle of the field and so on. We park, we start to take pictures, and then this one, I think is the female, start to walk towards us. So I think I took maybe 200 shots as her coming around until she laid down there forever, you know. So I had to pick between this picture that she's kind of sleeping, that's the part that I really liked, and or another one that she's kind of with the head turned away from me a little bit, but you could see all his its fur all ruffled up because it was really windy that day. So, but I like this one better because it looks so peaceful of her laying there in the middle of the snowfield.
Beautiful.
That's a very beautiful one. I like that a lot. That is yeah.
And I can tell you, in color looks really, really cool because each one of those little strands of grass is like a golden color, and she has some golden in its fur and so on. So it looks really cool as well in color.
Cool. That looks awesome, man.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's it.
And what about this one? That's cool, man. You got some good stuff there, man.
Thank you.
All right. Cool. All right. Now I know I missed some comments here, so let me double check through what's going on here. Let's see. Margaret likes your moonshot still.
Margaret, you should have turn a bunch of your eagles into black and whites, or even the caracara flying around.
Yeah, Kevin.
I have to go. The Bolts are losing.
I understand.
Oh.
Bye, everyone. Great session.
Thank you.
Next time.
Yeah.
So let me all right, so let me finish off here real quick, and then let me see, where did I throw? Here we go. Just a couple more things. Finish off here real quickly. I want to talk about some edits. So as I said, I did do some black and white stuff that I did at the end of the year. So I wanted to go over some of that stuff. So Jesselyn Harriman with a friend of mine, Isaac Powell, she came into the studio here at Johnson Photo. We got to shoot some pictures of her. So I shot some black and white photos of her while she was in the studio. And of course, that wasn't all black and white. And of course, some of it was in color and whatnot. So these are some of the settings I use. This is before I got the Panasonic. So these are all, of course, this was like in, when was this again? January, not January, December, January. This was in January when we shot these pictures. So anyway, it doesn't really matter. But so this is the settings that I used. You can see they're pretty much fairly consistent. The ISO was 1000 to 200, 125th to 400, 2.8 mainly throughout the whole thing, one lens throughout the whole shoot pretty much, 16 millimeters, 40 millimeters ish, using basically two different lights. The Nan light was the one that was using the black and light. And it's a constant light that was behind the glass brick wall, which is what's behind there. And I used the flash, which was basically on front of the camera facing her. Now, typically, as a rule, general rule, mind you, you don't usually want to have your flash on front of your camera unless you don't mind giving a flat look. So I didn't mind because this is kind of what I knew I was going to do. So let me talk about some of the edits to create a black and white photo from it, because what you see there on the right is the way it looked like in color. So as you can see right there, I did a little bit of a jiggly pokery, a little bit in there, how it looked. And then I did basically a little quick edit on the whole thing. So that's what it looked like right there. And then I did a little bit of editing in Lightroom. And then, of course, I threw it into Photoshop. Once I threw it into Photoshop, I then had to get rid of that annoying brick wall that was in there. So the brick wall is what was trying to drive me crazy. Another brick wall, but that little part of the thing would have been nicer if I'd actually moved her quit more into the brick, but for some reason, that's not what I was doing. I had a little bit of trouble trying to figure that out, but once I figured it out, which it was pretty straightforward. What I should have done was basically just selected her and then inverted the selection, which is what I ended up doing. And then I just was able to cut the rest of it out. Which then I went to is to content aware fill. And then Phil basically filled it with her, but then I had to tell it, don't use her, use the glass wall. And that's what I ended up doing, which then, okay, great, use the glass wall. Now, it's not perfect, mind you. Obviously, there's some, definitely some, it's not perfect over here, but that's fine. I don't care. It doesn't have to be perfect as far as that goes. But as long as it's good enough, that's all that matters. So once I get that where I want it, then I just basically made a black and white version after I made a smart object of I turned this into a smart object right here. So that way, if I wanted to make any changes later, I can do that. Once that's in the smart object, I made it to a black and white. And then I basically went through the different ones right here just to see what they would look like. And I did some of my own custom adjustments, but I wasn't too happy with that. And then I basically went through them all. Once I got to the ones I liked, I looked at the tint, went through that, tried a couple of different ones, didn't care for some of those. Finally, I picked one that I liked, which was, I think, the right there. With the under the custom, a little bit pumping up the yellow just a little bit right there, just to give me that look right there, which was what I was looking for. Once I got the look that I had, then I was very happy with it. That worked out pretty well for me. Then I ran it through Skylum right there. That was my next thing, Skylum, a Topaz. Then I tried to clean up some of the noise level that was in there a little bit. Once that was done, I then went into Camera Raw, and then I just basically did a little touch up in there with the highlights to darken it up just a tad bit there on her. And in the background there. And then after that was done, fixed it all up at that point. And that's pretty much it. It wasn't that too difficult with that there when it came to it. Now, the next thing I did was on this one right here. Now, if you notice right here, these are all kind of a warm tone. Now, the reason why they're all in a warm tone is because, again, I know that if I use the warmer tones, if I shot everything with just regular one, yeah, I could have made everything warm or whatever and things like that. But the reason why I wanted warm tones is because warmer tones, when I play them in the in black and white, I can always get a little bit lighter, or at least with the way her skin tones were, a little bit paler skin if I really want to, without having to do any gross exaggerations with it. At least that's the way I've always felt. I always think that works out a little bit better for when I'm working with that type of stuff. So it works out, at least for me, it works out kind of better for me for that. So once that's in there, then I can again throw it into oops, too far. Try one more time. So again, once I get the coloring the way I want, threw it in the layers. Now, the other thing I did do though is I wanted to smooth out some of the skin tones a little bit, like up in here. I threw it into a neurofilize filter to kind of see how it goes from like here to here, as far as with the skin tones. Once that was all done, then I went back into here into Camera Raw, fixed up a little bit of the spots there for some of the dark areas, some of the highlights. And then I was kind of losing the eyes a bit, so I just wanted to bring out that spot in the eyes to kind of bring that in a little bit more. And once that was there, now one of the cool things with some of the new stuff with Lightroom now, or with Camera Raw, is all the new layering of the masks and stuff like that, which has been very useful to me when I'm doing some of my more customized edits as far as that goes. It's been very, very helpful. And the last edit, which is a little bit more complex, so I'm going to make this one, even though it's a little bit more complex, it's actually going to be a little bit shorter. Because, my God, it's almost 9 o'clock. Or is it 9 o'clock? It's after 9 o'clock. It's 9 o'clock. Let's see if we can finish this up. So on this particular one, what I ended up doing was that you can see this is not the original picture. In fact, there is no rose in her hair. And in fact, what I did do is actually kept some of the red there. I just thought it was screaming to me. When I shot the picture here, I liked the pose. I liked the way it looked. I thought it was a really nice thing, but I knew that it was missing something when I shot the picture. I did not have a rose or any kind of element to throw into her hair. I was going for more of a pinup-y look, but I didn't really have any pinup-y props. Sorry. I did not have any pinup-y props here to use other than the chair, and we had this nice little wrap for her. So I really, really wanted to do some more pinup-y looking stuff. So I had to do the best that I could with what I had. So these are some of the pictures that I was kind of going through with the different elements. So you can see how it started with it, and then I went around from there. So the way it worked out was this. Let me move this here real quick to here. So you can see on the very bottom down here, that's what it looks like right there. So what I did was I made a black and white layer, just black and white, nothing fancy. But what I also did is I also copied this in color, the red top. What I ended up doing, let me back it up a bit, is I took the selection tool, which is this guy, and just basically selected this whole entire area, that red. There's also a thing in there select called color select, and I can also select just that red area, and I just made it its own area right there. Once I selected that, then what I was able to do then is change the color, because I thought it was a little bit too, I don't know, red, too bright, needed to be darker. So I made a brighten contrast, contrast and brighten thing here to tone it down just a little bit. And you do something what's called clipping, meaning you only clip it to that one layer that's going to only affect that. And once I do that, then it's only going to affect that one thing. So I can make it brighter, make it darker, only with that one thing there. Then I turned on selective color. Selective color is only going to affect the red there. So once I'm only doing that, I can adjust just the tones of just the red right there. So great. However, I wanted to play around with the lips area, so I wanted to make those lips a little bit more stand out. So I really wanted to get that going. So then I had to actually do a little brighten contrast copy on top of the lips to give them on that same shine. And then I had to play around with that a little bit more. Then I had to go find a rose to stick in her hair because it definitely needed that. And then I said, no, that one sucks. I'm going to go get a different one. So I took that one away, put a different one there. You can see what I ended up doing is I put a drop shadow in there to cover that up right there. And then I also added like a little motion blur because, it doesn't have to be tack sharp. If it was tack sharp, it'd really stand out. And then you can see right there, that's what it looked like before, and there's after. So that's basically how I turned that into. And you can see the skin's a little bit more smoothed out, but I think that's more pinup-y look in that regards. I'm not trying to make it look like photographic pinup. I'm trying to make it look like an old Vargas type pinup type of thing. It's supposed to be more like an old type of pinup, and then that's what it's supposed to look like. There she looks like a ghost now. So there you have it. And that, as they say, are the edits and that stuff. So that is pretty much how it all kind of worked out for me as far as dealing with black and white. So whenever I'm doing the edits, whenever I'm doing any of that type of stuff, whenever I'm like thinking I'm going to turn something into a black and white thing, whether it's something I'm thinking about afterwards or something I'm deliberately thinking about beforehand, it's important to kind of, especially if I'm deliberately thinking about it beforehand, it's important to think about what the colors I'm starting off with, are those going to translate well into black and white? If I'm not thinking about that to begin with, then I got to pay attention to what my colors are going to be. If I'm dealing with fall colors, I want oranges and reds and stuff like that. But then if I am going to turn my fall colors into black and white, then I know that what's going to happen, my yellows and my greens are going to get brighter, and my reds and my blues are going to get darker. And then it's a matter of me then at this point playing with the sliders back and forth to see which way they're going to go. It's like putting like that red filter on or a blue filter on, and how much of the red or blue filter am I throwing on there to compensate for that, to make whichever parts to stand out. The thing is with Photoshop, you can actually minimize certain areas now to make those things stand out. Back in again, the good old days when we were just in the dark rooms, you would actually put variety of different filters in certain areas to achieve similar effects in the dark room to get those results. So it was lots of fun to kind of play around with those things to make these effects really kind of stand out. Black and white, to me, for me, if I had my druthers, I would probably still say black and white is probably my more favorite medium, because it always seems to have more of an emotional impact in a lot of the pictures. Black and white always seems to draw people to it more often than not. It's not that color doesn't have a lot of impact, but if you ever looked at some of the older photographs from way back when, they always had that same look to them. That was something that stand out, whether you're looking at, Prohibition photos or looking at headshots from today that are in black and white. They always seem to have that. There's a really cool portrait photographer here in Sarasota, Michael Kinsey, and he does some really great black and white photos that are just outstanding. And if you ever get a chance to check out some of his stuff, some great work. Michael Kinsey, Kinsey Studios. I think if you get a chance to locate some of his stuff. He does a lot of magazine work for the local paper magazine, or Sarasota Magazine, I think. So yeah, some great work. He's the one that portrait of it's in color, but it's the portrait of me that he uses in there, and the one he's done of me and my son. So I like using that a lot. That's some great portrait work. So yeah. Any questions about anything for anybody tonight? Thank you everyone for all the compliments. Thank you, Margaret. Anybody, anything else? New message. Well, you're welcome. Thank you. All right. I think of anything else. Well, listen, guys, I appreciate you guys all taking the time here to listen to all of us ramble on. If you guys like sharing your photos, so with the group, there'll be another, of course, another self assignment. I try to do the self assignments on a bi-monthly, and so the next one will be in February, March, April. Had to think about it. So the next one will be in April for that. Again, it'll probably be again around 7:00 again. So if you guys are interested, or if you guys got another idea for time, let me know. I'll be glad to put it on the old whiteboard and think about it there. I know some of you again are in different time zones, so I always try to keep that in mind when we're scheduling these things. Yeah, I'm looking at you, Glidden.
Believe me, I had to take the early train home today.
That's I know 7:00 is like 4:00 over there, right?
Yeah, well, when you started, it was 5:00.
Okay.
So I'm 2 hours behind.
Well, you know, and our time zone's changing too. Again, we're not we get that time, whatever is changing. You guys ever get? Does that change over there?
Yes, it does.
I forget which states don't do that.
Arizona doesn't change back. So
I thought Florida was giving it up, and I can't remember if they did it. There's a lot of things here, but we won't discuss them.
yeah.
Anyway, so I want to say thanks again for everyone taking the time. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I look forward to seeing you guys out there. If you guys are in the area, please stop by the store. We're glad to go over that stuff. And any of that stuff, you guys got questions about any of those, feel free to message me. I appreciate you guys very much. Feel free to drop me a tip if you feel like it. That always helps me out. Even though I work here at Johnson Port Imaging, they do help out with some of the meetup stuff. The Zoom sessions. This is something I do on my own. So I'll just keep that in mind. Other than that, thanks again. I hope you guys have a lovely evening. Thanks for tuning in. And take some great pictures, guys. Thanks a lot. Some of you discovered me through Meetup. I also run another Meetup page called the Low Light Photo Group. If you haven't already, please stop by and sign up, and you'll get updates when the next self-assignment is. Appreciate the time that you've all taken to spend with me here, and like I said, thank you so much.